Hi, this is Lori, and this is my homework for Paul McWhorter's Uno R4 class. This will be for lesson 31, where we're using a DHT11 temperature and humidity sensor. All right, let's just take a look at my setup before we get started going through the code. And you'll see that I have 3 buttons, and as set up in here, one's for temperature, that's red, one's for humidity, and one's for the heat index. Because I just thought that was a lot of data to scroll at one time, and people might want to just take a little bit at a time, so that was a little easier to see. You'll also see that I put in many places that you see this sensor hooked up to an Arduino. You often see it with a 10K resistor on the signal. I noticed we didn't do that in the course, and I actually looked at the information from our kit as well, and they didn't show it hooked up that way either. But I remember lots of other places when I had worked with Arduinos and Picos, I think. If you don't have this mounted on one of those breakout boards, then it's supposed to have a 10 kilo ohm resistor in there. And I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of that is. Maybe to smooth out the signal some. I'm not sure, but I decided to put it in, so that's why it's there. And then because of the way I'm doing this, I'm not using any kind of interrupt. So once you press the button, you can't get another button press registered until the scrolling here stops, because it's on that one command to scroll. And I'm not even sure an interrupt will interrupt a command. It would probably interrupt to the next one, I think, but I don't know. I have to investigate that. I have not used interrupts on Arduinos yet, and so I'll get to that eventually and see whether that works. But so the way I've got it, without being able to interrupt the scroll and stop it to display, if somebody hit the next button and instead of hearing, they wanted temperature and they they wanted humidity and they hit the temperature button, they might want to hit this button again. So I put an LED in here just to indicate the scrolling was still going on, and as soon as the light goes off, that means the scrolling's complete and you can press the next button. So I was just trying to create maybe a little bit of a user interface there. And I also flashed this several times at the startup to show that the sensor is ready and the data is ready to be displayed. That's the point of the LED here. And the other thing, I have yet another attempt at diffusing this matrix, and I'll bring it, maybe I'll leave it over here so I can see it. It's just a piece of plastic from a file folder, and you'll notice that it's shiny. If I pulled it back, you can see it's a little bit shiny on that side, but on this side it's a little opaque. That's the inside of the file. So plastic file, I'll just cut out a part of it, and I found that this diffuses pretty good because I have a lot of light in here. I don't have a real studio with lighting and all that kind of stuff, so I have to deal with the windows I have in my office here, and I'm not going to invest tons of money and make these videos. So I like them to be nice, but there is a limit to what I'm willing to do. So I've been looking for a better way to diffuse, and I really like how this piece of plastic folder works. I've tried all kinds of things, and recently I've been using some masking tape, and that sort of works, but it kind of hides the LEDs themselves, so you can still sort of see them through the blue tint there, but it definitely helps with diffusing the light and keeping the bright lights that I do have on from keeping you from seeing the messages that are going by. So that's my new diffuser. All right, let's get to the code. All right, so I said most of those things. The other thing is I'm going to use a blink without delay. I'm going to update the sensor at a slower rate than I check the buttons. And in the demo here, I'm going to update the sensor data every 5 seconds, but because I want to demonstrate some things and I don't want to wait forever. But probably in real life I wouldn't update the data very frequently. Maybe every minute, maybe 30 seconds every minute, maybe every 5 minutes, depending on what you wanted to use this data for, how responsive you wanted it to be to temperature changes. But if it were just to monitor a room, I wouldn't think you'd need the data checked every second. So but that's something you could dial in and out depending on how you set the interval in this code. So we'll set up our matrix, our DHT11 sensor. We'll create the matrix object. We'll make a whole bunch of variables to hold all the sensor data, and then I'm going to have 3 messages to display the temperature. Message 0, message 1 will be the humidity, and message 2 will be the heat index. And we'll set the time so we can do this blink without delay. And I'll set it for 5 seconds every update, but you could set that to whatever is appropriate for the situation you were trying to use this for. Then we'll need to set up our buttons and the various button variables that we need to check for button presses, and the LED as well. And in the setup, we'll start the matrix, start the DHT11. I'll delay for a couple seconds to give it some time to get set up. We'll do the pin modes for the buttons and the LED, and then we'll get our first set of data. Because I'm going to only update every 5 seconds, I need to make sure I have an initial read of the data here in the setup loop. And I probably should have put in a check for bad data. I haven't had trouble getting any bad data so far, but that would be a nice fix to this, or a nice update to this program. And then here I'm constructing the strings the way Paul had showed us to do. So there's the 3 messages put together. Then we're going to flash the LED 5 times real fast, just to show that we're finished with the setup loop and we're ready to go. Then in the void loop, we'll read the current time, and then we'll decide, is it time to get some new sensor data? If we have more than 5 seconds has passed, we'll go back to the DHT11 and get new data. And if the data is bad, then we'll scroll data invalid onto the screen, and I'll demonstrate that by removing the sensor here when we do the demo. I'll show you how that works. And then we'll update the timing, and we'll construct our messages. If it's not time, or as we go through this loop, if we skip all this because it's not time to update, we'll be checking the buttons, looking for presses. And if we have presses, so for the temperature, we can kind of see what happens for temperature. We'll set up the matrix to print a message using whatever font and so forth and speed that we want. We'll send message 0 because this is the temperature data. And we'll turn on our LED. We'll start the scroll. Then we'll turn off our LED as soon as that scroll is completed. And then we'll do the same thing for humidity, sending the message 1 instead. And for the heat index, we'll send message 2. And then we'll reset the button states and do a little debounce and go back around again. All right, so that's how it goes. So it's all set up now and running. So let's just reset it so we can watch the LED flash when it's ready. There it goes. So now it's ready. So let's just take a look. Let's try temperature. Yeah, that's filming pretty well. Looking at my monitor, it is. All right, so there's our temperatures, Fahrenheit and Celsius. Let's ask for humidity. And we got the humidity. And here's the heat index. And you can see the green light coming on as it's scrolling. And then it'll turn off as soon as the scroll is over. Yeah, maybe if we had used interrupts, maybe that we could make the buttons interrupt the scroll. I don't know whether we can do that with the interrupts. So that'd be an interesting thing to investigate at some later date. I need to catch up. I could spend forever on some of these homeworks. Well, let's test out the invalid data. So I'm going to pull out the sensor. And you can see it now, it's scrolling invalid data. And I'll keep doing that because it's returning to the top. So if I can get this into the right spots, as soon as it reads it, you'll see now it quit sending that message. And we should be able to ask for our data again. And we can. Yeah, so that was a fun homework, and I was thinking a little bit about usability of the device. I was kind of challenging myself to think of, well, how would somebody want to use this, and how would they know not to push the button too fast? So I thought adding an LED or something like that would be a nice way to go. Well, I want to thank Paul for the great lesson, and thank you for watching.